Well, number one, a lot of times people don't share that just like out in the open. And so it's nice to hear like, oh, I'm not totally crazy.
Yeah, amen,
Like
sister.
things I see or like things I experience or like things my sister experiences are not totally out of the norm.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's why I love him. Because honestly, apart from recovery groups and our experience, Lauren, you and I visiting a prison, people are not real open about their mistakes in life
No.
and their struggles. And I wish they were. So I love staring at these things. And there was one that that was actually really sweet that I think I wanted to chat with you guys about. It's not very long, and it says this. Dear Annie is what this one is. I live with bipolar disorder, which I was first diagnosed with in the early 1990s. My husband and I got together after my diagnosis, and he's been my biggest support through everything, navigating different providers, raising my children, not his. We also had their challenges, and he helped me stay stable. There have been tough times when I felt guilty for the toll my illness has taken on him. He didn't sign up for this in his life. Yet he's had to watch me struggle through hospitalizations, legal troubles during severe psychotic episodes, and multiple diagnoses before we found the right one. I do my best to manage my illness, and blah, blah, blah. But if it weren't for the support systems like my providers, medications, and other groups, we might not have made it. I know my husband needs time and space for himself, too. No one can be everything to someone. And I do my best to let him know how much I appreciate his love and support. How can I ensure that my husband feels supported and cared for in our marriage while I continue to manage my illness? How can I keep our relationship strong despite these ongoing challenges? Like essentially, how can I make sure he knows that I love him and appreciate him because I know I'm a lot.
Ask him.
But sometimes it doesn't, like if someone's love languages aren't words, Daria, it's like, how do you really know they're okay? And they know you appreciate it.
Ask them. I mean, even if your love language is not words of affirmation, this is important communication that everybody needs to get better at for the sake of their relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I can relate to this in a sense, not in the bipolar disorder sense, but in the being a lot sense, as you all know. Like when you know you're kind of a lot to handle, you know that you're difficult to love, and you want to be sure that the other person knows how much you appreciate their tolerance. Like Dan had a lot of patience with you and your Wi-Fi routers. And I know it's a silly example, but
yeah.
And because looking at that pile probably drove her nuts, but she knew that's her Ron. But how do you make sure she knows you really appreciate her tolerance of your idiosyncrasies?
I don't know that this was a direct response to that, but I try to do as much as I can helping around the house. I carry the laundry basket upstairs and divide out the clothes. I don't hang up everything. I'll put all her hangers on her door handle, and then she can hang them where she wants them. I, put the towels away and, divvy up the other pieces of clothing. Then I take down the dirty clothes and I, separate them, maybe start a load before I go to bed. So I try to do that, unload the dishwasher or load it with dishes in the sink. Just to show one that I understand we're both working to some degree. So I shouldn't just say, well, this is woman's work. You do all that. Although there are a few things she says are men's work she doesn't want to do.
Lauren's like, preach. Yeah.
So
for you, it's ensuring that you're showing her you care about her and know she puts up with you by making sure she's not alone in the burden of caring for the home.
Yeah.
I like that. How do you do this, Lauren? How do you make sure Eddie knows that you really do appreciate him dealing with Lauren? Not that you're a lot to deal with. I'm not saying that, but we all are in some sense.
Yeah. I think I tell him.
How?
That I appreciate him. And then knowing that he needs time and that he has a hard time asking for time. He feels like a burden asking for time alone or out of the house because he works from home. So if he doesn't schedule time to get out of the house, he'll be there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so being supportive of and suggesting time for him to get out and do what he wants to do and not worry about, oh, I'm leaving Lauren with the kids when it's normally our shared time with them. It's fine. You need time away too. You need time to go care for yourself.
So you're not only proactive in that, but you're watching him to see
Yeah.
when he needs it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know he probably won't advocate for himself.
Yeah.
I totally get that, and that's beautiful. I'm sure he appreciates that and knows that's a sign that you love him.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I do want to turn back to Daria's point because, I think it's easy in a marriage relationship to not ever actually say something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jimmy and I do. He's better at this than I am. We'll have occasional conversations. What can I do to love you better?
Yeah.
And his love language is absolutely words of affirmation, which is one I struggle with. So I do make a conscious effort of being very verbal about what I appreciate, what I see him doing around the house.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. But even the deliberate act of stopping, looking your spouse in the eye and saying, hey, you've put up with a lot in the last X number of time. I know I've done X, Y, and Z. I want you to know how much I appreciate that. And I don't want the moment to pass by without me being very clear on that. I love you so much. Thank you for that. Like, I don't know that we're ever that deliberate. For Sarah and me, I know we try to be. Marriage therapy has helped us do that. But it's like there's never a natural moment for that.
No, you just have to bring it up.
And it's almost like a backwards apology in a sense. You know that we've talked about before on the show. I think there's a specific methodology for apologies. I did this. It was wrong. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? And there's almost a similar feel in deliberately appreciating someone. Hey, I want you to know that I see that you've done this. I know I'm difficult to deal with, blah, 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 and I want you to know I love you and appreciate it. That's a deliberate act that I think has tons of value.
But I also think that's what's important to you is words. And so that's why it feels so
Right.
big to you, where some people, words really don't mean that much. They need to see action to feel appreciated.
But don't you think at some level the verbal thing matters in some sense to everyone? Like a deliberate
know.
stopping and saying, I appreciate you?
I think to most people, even if it's not your primary love language, I do think that means something. Because, again, even if that's not where you receive love, that communication is so important to a marriage.
Or even deliberately saying to Eddie, I want you to know that I'm watching. I see. I think you need a break, and as opposed to just, hey, you want a break? Something about and again, maybe this is just my need for verbal things, but I think sometimes it can pass by without any sort of deliberate recognition of it. Somebody may not know that's what's happening. How can they know you're loving them in that way if you don't tell them? Like Billy Joel said.
Tell her about it.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know how to process the point you made, Lauren, because I'm not verbal things matter so much to me that I don't even know what it would look like without it.
A couple nights ago, just like a long, hard day with the kids, I was putting our youngest Ellis to sleep. And Eddie texted me while I'm putting him to sleep, and he said, hey, when you come out, I've put some ice cream in a mug for you already.
Aw.
Oh, boy.
And
Ice cream?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
that, and it's
I know.
like,
I know.
that's
I love
like
ice cream.
screaming, I love
Yes.
Lauren, opening the front door. I love Lauren.
Yes, exactly. And that he knew that it was like a struggle, that getting to bedtime was like a war. And so he's like, hey, I put some ice cream, set it aside for you when you're done.
And that's so intentional, and it's something you love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see it now. That's good.
And you could eat it or drink it, depending how long it took
Yes.
Alice to fall asleep.
Exactly.
That's so good. But if anything, I think this Dear Annie piece is a good reminder, as we all have a little bit of time off around the holidays, Lord willing, to be intentional in one way or another with someone you love in this way. I think it's super helpful. All right, 6:34. More to come after we pause for prayer.
I'm Barb Carine, and this is Pause for Prayer. Many of us have heard and read the book, The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. He suggests there are 5 ways of expressing love: acts of service, giving gifts, quality time, physical touch, and words of affirmation. He says that most of us have a primary love language, one that makes us feel the most loved. Jesus exemplified all of these expressions of love throughout his life and death. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, during this Christmas season, may we express God's love languages as Jesus did, not only to those who are easy to love, but also to those who need it and maybe don't deserve it. Love is a universal language that every person that exists understands it and desires it. May we be the person who is kind and thoughtful and goes out of their way to help, only with the motivation to love. May we consider the love languages of others so that we can express love that is very meaningful to them. Jesus, you said, they will know you are Christians by your love. Lord, forgive us for being too busy, focused on ourselves, and maybe looking out for number one a little too much, that we can't see the needs and hurts of those around us. Forgive us for having an us versus them mentality, staying in our comfort zone. Open our eyes to see those who could use a helping hand, to share a smile or even a gift without wanting anything back. Prompt us to go out of our way to help someone, to give up what we want so that someone can get what they want. And even as I write this, my heart is reminded of how amazing it is to bless others in these ways, and how deeply touching it is when we are the recipient of someone's unexpected kindness. May we, your church, be better known for our love. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. In Jesus' name, amen.
Moody Radio is thankful for support for businesses across the country, like Fellowship Home Loans. Whether purchasing or refinancing a home, Mike and Brian walk hand in hand with clients through the whole process. You can learn more about their approach to mortgage lending at fellowshiphomeloans.com.
Today, there is a disciple-making church planting movement that's taken root in 40 countries around the world. It's called the Timothy Initiative, and its mission is to see a healthy church planted in every village, everywhere. Since 2007, over 200,000 churches have been planted through the work of the Timothy Initiative, but there's more work to be done. Take your place in the Timothy Initiative. Go to ttiglobal.org.
Keeping your eyes on Jesus in a changing culture can be difficult. Let us help. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian, Moody Radio, Cleveland, 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
641 WCRF. Get your tickets to Walkworthy Men's Conference. It's coming up Saturday, March 1st at Canton Baptist Temple, and tickets are now on sale at a discounted price. So you're going to want to hurry up and get it. All right? Text WALK to 440-546-2255. Text WALK to 440-546-2255. I want to throw down something controversial.
Okay.
Throwing it down. Okay? Holiday tipping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's rules, sort of.
That are different from the rest of the year tipping?
Yeah, I'm not talking about tipping the server at your restaurant.
Okay.
This is the time of year where people consider
Oh.
tipping some of the peripheral services, as in mail carriers, garbage trash collectors.
Yeah.
The recommendation from from Bankrate is $20 each. And then there's the housekeeper and childcare providers, where apparently you tip them at Christmas time,
Yeah.
starting around $50.
I don't think of it as tipping. I think of it as giving them a gift. But I guess you could call it tipping.
I'm just trying to figure, I struggle with these. Now, I know we have trash collectors listening. Love you. You deserve a tip. I just don't understand the boundaries of it. And I don't understand why I don't get a tip.
No, I understand.
People send us cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by the way, thank you, Mayor Phil.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Phil.
All right.
He told
Brian
me
was the first to dive in.
Oh, they were excellent because they were
very
they were
good.
pre-packaged, so it was like fair game.
Yeah, that's Brian's candy shop for him.
Sanitary Factory made them for me. But he said the only reason he really sent them was because he wants to get on your good side after insulting something that you said.
Jump 5, yeah.
Your favorite band.
Not my favorite band. Brian's actually more insulting than you are, Mayor Phil. So.
I just what do you guys make of the tip in the garbage? I don't even know how to tip a garbage man.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Chase him.
how we've done that.
I'm not
in
going
the
to tape a
past.
20 onto the garbage can at the corner of the street.
Right. And you can't leave it loose.
And
it
usually
could
you're not
blow
home.
away. Yeah.
I'm not home when our trash comes. They come in the morning. So
I don't even know when our mail carrier comes. There's like a 3-hour window I've seen them.
Right. And again, I'm grateful for mail carriers. They're amazing. Like they go through rain or sleet or shine. Amazing what they do. I love them. I just don't understand why there's a tip there at Christmas time. I know this sounds super rude and I want to love my neighbor, so I'm hoping you guys will coach me why I'm wrong about this.
Our mail, we do a gift, and it's usually wrapped in a box, so it's quite evident. They open the mailbox to see what's in there. Oh, there's a gift. It says to you from me,
Can they even accept stuff like that? Because they're both government workers.
Well, they do.
They have for years. I don't know if the IRS will come after them.
Because we've talked about the oddity these days of tipping in that, you go to a Domino's, you've ordered online, and you walk in. No one's had to be serve you in any way other than turn around and grab it off the shelf. And there's a tip line. And we've all been like, no, that's ridiculous.
Right.
At what point does doing your job, this sounds so rude, I admit it, but it's like, if you didn't deliver my mail, you'd be fired. But if a server at a restaurant does an exceptionally good job serving,
And they're paid half of minimum wage.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference.
that makes sense to me. But it's like, how do you deliver mail exceptionally well?
Put it in my box, I guess.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, again, if you're a mail carrier, I love you and I hope you get gifts. I just don't understand the rule.
yeah, I have a friend who her daughters go to a mom's day out preschool, and she I love her so much. She's an over the top person, so she's doing handmade crafts for the primary teacher and the 75 secondary teachers and the preschool director. And for me, I said, oh, well, I'm getting Trey's teacher something. I'm not getting the director something and the office person something. Personally, I don't have money for that. I don't have money for $25 gifts for all the teachers. So that's kind of where my hardship comes in. Is I don't have money to give to all of these people.
Because you're already paying exorbitant rates for the service.
Yes,
It's
for
like-
daycare, for preschool.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking at childcare providers. God bless you. $50 more? This is one of the most outrageously priced things on earth right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah,
but
we got ours a gift card. It's not for much, but it's something. But I can't do that for everybody that works at the school.
right.
And we had our son's Christmas program yesterday, and I saw moms coming in with like 4 or 5 gifts, and I was like, oh, we just have the one for his one teacher.
And
Yeah.
by the way, as a secondary teacher for 6 years, I got nothing. So why is it elementary teachers get
I don't know.
presents and secondary teachers don't? That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, it is
There's
a
a
lot.
lot of them.
I mean,
I
you're
had 8 classes a day, so
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we less valuable as secondary teachers?
I just said I give it to the one. I don't know why you're coming for me.
And I'm just giving you a hard time for the sake of argument. But again, I know. But see, how about the biblical principle? We're supposed to be generosity is a biblical principle. Kindness, love your neighbor. So what, should we just tip everybody?
There's only so much money to go around, though. Like, you're trying to be generous to your kids and your family members. You're being generous at your church. At some point, you're going to have to say, I don't have the money to be any more generous because I need to keep a roof over my heads and put food on my table.
I mean, because being kind to people in these professions is a great idea.
Oh, obviously.
It's what Christians ought to do. I don't know, but again, what's stopping society from saying everyone who listens to a radio show must stop by and hand each of us a 20? Oh, come on. Hey, whoa, hey, providing a service, working real hard for you. Where's my money? I don't know. Please don't do that. I'm not asking for it. Don't do that. I don't even know if I can accept it. Probably can't. Well, I'll give it to Moody. So just give to Moody Bible Institute. You're kind of agreeing with me.
Yeah, I budget for Christmas. We save throughout the year a certain amount every month for Christmas. And the 2 gifts for our 2 boys' teachers is what we have.
My biggest fear doing this is that my mail carrier personally and my garbage collector personally heard this and thinks I'm not grateful and my trash will be on the
They
street.
don't think that.
Okay.
They're professionals. They'll still do their job.
And I don't even know how to tip you, but I love you. Thank you for your great job.
I have all kinds of nieces and nephews that I also have to give gifts for. So, and I just can't go over a budget that we've established is what we're able to do within our means.
By the way, side note on garbage collection, I sent one of my kids out to go put the garbage to the corner a couple of weeks ago. They did it wrong. They had him facing the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I understand why they did it, but there were these Post-its that were bright orange Post-its.
It's embarrassing.
2 per can.
That is so embarrassing.
That were like, this person doesn't know what they're doing is essentially, why are you doing this totally wrong? You can't take them off. They will come off, you
So
guys.
the trash collectors put it on this as like, hey, don't do this again? Is
Yeah,
that-
and I
That
get
is
it.
so embarrassing.
Because they have to do that. But I was like, oh, God. I was like, kids, I taught the kids how to do it. And then I was like, I'm going to take these off. I can't. I am now perpetually shamed by my garbage collector. What am I supposed to do?
That's funny.
We have never done it wrong since. And
I'm sure.
And now
Don't
every
you have like
week,
a mile between you and your next neighbor, though? No one's going to see it.
Well, yeah, but every week now, the garbage collector gets up there and goes, these people. Because they see the thing. It's not they're not going to forget.
I think they're more forgiving than you're giving them credit for.
I'm sure they are, but can we get like a Post-it that doesn't...
They don't want it to come
It's
off
not cement.
in the rain or whatever. You know.
But there's got to be a middle ground here.
I think they want you to be perpetually shamed.
It feels like it.
Pull out a grinder and just take it off that way.
I'm going to have to.
A sander.
But then
Sand
I'll
it
be
off.
fined for destruction of someone else's property or something.
That's right. You don't
know.
own the garbage
Yeah,
cans.
it's true. You rent them.
So they can do whatever they want to them.
Yeah. Guys, I'm sorry. It wasn't even me. It was my kid. What do kids know? Nothing. All right. 6:50. We're up against quick break. When we come back, pretend experts.
Hope lives because a tiny baby born in a manger changed everything forever. Let's celebrate that hope this season with Moody Radio's Music of Christmas. And it's on now, streaming all of your Christmas favorites at musicofchristmas.org. Listen on your smartphone through the new Moody Radio app. Start celebrating today at musicofchristmas.org.
We are men. We are men of God, and we want to walk worthy of the calling God has given each of us. Our annual Bible Conference for Men is one part of that journey. Walk Worthy is what it is called, and we hope to see you there on March 1st in Canton, Ohio. We aren't sure yet who the speakers will be, but we will have them, and music, and food. And we'll let you know the details once everyone makes up their minds. After all, we are men.
Hey, my name is Brant Hansen, and I have less than 30 seconds here to share something truly, profoundly awesome with you, and I'm going to. It's a website, cure.org/Moody. You'll see God at work, seriously. It's through Cure International Children's Hospitals where kids are healed and the kingdom is proclaimed so brilliantly. I tell people this is the most Jesus-shaped ministry I've ever seen. Check it out. So beautiful. Before and after videos of these kids healed in the name of Jesus. Just go to cure.org/Moody.
May you receive God's most special blessings this Christmas season from your friends at Mornings with Brian and Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
They look at business decisions and impose their positions. Without a doubt, they know what they're talking about. It's time for Pretend Experts.
All right, here we go. First story comes to us from AT&T. I don't have a city, but AT&T is everywhere. They're cutting the cord on copper landline connections by the end of 2029. Only about 5% of customers still use them, and broadband should cover over 50 million locations by then. But the old school phone lines, gone. Good decision?
No. I'm sure it's costing them more money than they're making on this at this point, but there are a lot of people that still don't have cell phones and are never going to have a cell phone.
But I think some of them actually can get their phone service through the fiber or whatever you have now. The newer technology that they've put in.
Not the old plugs in the wall, which, by the way, I've had a few homes now. We move a lot, but we've had a few homes that don't even have those plugs.
Yeah.
Like if I wanted to plug it in the old school phone line, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren?
I understand why they're doing it, but kind of like Daria said, some people do still want them.
Yeah, I don't even know. I guess I don't totally even understand it because it's the customers that will require the most care to make a change are the ones who have those.
Right.
It's going to be a headache for them to do that, right? Someone like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, this is going to backfire, and you're going to leave a lot of people without service that need it. I hope this doesn't become a trend because there are people that are never going to have cell phones.
Yeah, my parents still have a landline. I don't know why.
Mine do too. And
what are they doing?
Every time I call my parents, they're like, "There's something wrong with your phone," and they're the only people that tell me this. I'm like, "No, Dad, it's your landline because it's 20 years old."
Yeah, I could still call the phone number I memorized when I was like 5, and they'll answer. My mom and dad. Mom and Dad, why are you doing this?
I'd like to see numbers of how many people do have landlines still.
Right.
And why they have it. Because if you ask them, they'll tell you, I just get all these solicitation calls. Why do you have it?
I get a lot of solicitation calls on my cell phone.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why I never answer it.
Yeah, I basically am like, don't answer anymore.
If it's important, they'll leave a voicemail.
And then they don't.
Sometimes you answer when I call.
Oh, yeah, you're not a solicitor.
Well, depends on the day, I suppose. All right, so we're against this.
Yeah.
All right, look at us. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah.
Next story. Walmart is putting body cameras on some of its employees who focus on employee safety.
Good heavens.
It's a pilot. There's a pilot program. Apparently someone's posted a poster online that shows employees how to use them.
Don't they already have security cameras like all over the store?
Yeah, but this would be a body camera.
Yeah, what has happened that they think this is necessary?
I've seen videos, and I don't know how widespread it is because, one video can be all over the place. But there are those extremely rude customers who come in and just try to buffalo through, get their way, get a discount, get this or that. And they're mouthy as all get out. And the customer service agent has to keep their cool. They're not allowed to just punch them in the face like you want to. So
yeah, and people make accusations about employee behavior.
Yes, all the time. And this way you've got documentation that, no, sorry, rude lady, you're a liar. There you go.
So you're in favor of this?
Got her.
What do you think?
I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, I'm not either, just primarily because, when someone gets really wound up about this, I just go, well, listen, I'm usually trying my best to behave.
I'm
so I have
trying
nothing to be afraid
not
of.
be seen or looked at stores. So maybe just chill and you don't have anything to worry about. Just get your groceries and leave.
There we go.
If you're worried that someone's going to catch you being mean, then maybe you just shouldn't be mean.
That's all we need to say on that. Final story comes to us from Japan.
Okay.
Japanese researchers are testing a new drug that would help people with missing teeth grow new teeth.
No, that's frightening.
Dental researchers in Osaka are dispelling the idea that humans can only grow 2 sets of teeth and claim that beneath our gums are the dormant buds of a third generation of teeth. We are secretly shark people. They say they've been testing a drug on mice and ferrets that could help awaken the third set of teeth. And they have photos saying they have regrown animal teeth. Oh my goodness. Brains exploded. You don't have to worry as you get older. You just take a pill, new teeth.
Would it, like with your baby teeth, the adult teeth push them up and push them out?
Yeah.
If you stimulated these buds, would it push out all your adult teeth so that your senior citizen teeth come up?
I might like a whole new set after a while. You get enough cavities, you're like, I'm done with this. I'm not paying for more cavities. Grow the tooth buds.
Yeah. And Does a tooth fairy come around for these tooth?
Yeah.
teeth?
Think of all the money you'd make.
I don't think anybody's putting a quarter under your pillow when you're 45, Brian.
Maybe they should. Lauren, you simply covered your mouth with a few fingers. That's usually a troubling sign.
I'm concerned that if you're going to get new teeth, the reason you had cavities or maybe they got so decayed they fell out, are you still not going to take care of the new teeth? So then, what's the point?
Well, yeah, because,
So, you're not going to take care of your new teeth?
Correct. You wouldn't have to worry about it.
That's not how
because
that
I don't
works.
think there's, unlimited.
What if there's a fourth set of buds?
That's not what they said. They said 3.
Okay, but dental health is not just the falling out of your teeth. Like, it can cause other issues, but with the gum lines and with your heart health, it's the idea of growing a third set of teeth is also just very unsettling.
Yeah, it
to
really
me.
freaks me out.
I would have to get braces again if they come in
Yeah,
the same way my adult teeth did.
Exactly. I'm not dropping money. I got my retainers. I'm fine.
It'd be a horrifying mess of teeth, again, as an adult. But I don't know. I care less about things like that as I get older. So maybe I'd care less about my teeth being all crooked and weird.
But then
Why
when
don't you try it?
Care if
you've
it
gotta
causes you problems.
when you got to get implants and things like that, it gets really expensive. Might be cheaper to take a pill and pop out a whole new set.
I just wonder about the side effects of this.
That's my other concern.
You do grow a horn, but, whatever. From your horn bud.
Your horn bud.
Or a tail. You get a tail now, too. But, hey, you get new teeth. All right, it's 7:03. I think we hate that one.
Yeah, it gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Coming up in a few minutes, one famous writer has got it figured out. Why have Americans become so lonely and mean? Why are we so mean? He's got it figured out, I think.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Israel says it has carried out deadly airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. It's 7:03. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. The attacks early Thursday come as a retaliation for attacks on Israel by the Iranian-backed group. Houthis have been targeting Israel, stepping up attacks after the October 7th, 2023 Hamas attacks on Israel. Police say family members of 61-year-old Carol Beebe asked police to perform a welfare check on Beebe after they had not heard from her for several days. Police went to Beebe's home in Ashtabula County where they found her dead in a pond. After checking surveillance footage, police discovered that Beebe's dog had fallen through the ice on a pond, and she went to try to rescue her dog, drowning in the effort. With less than 1 week to go before Christmas, the Alliance Salvation Army reports that toys collected for the down-on-their-luck families have been stolen. The toys, collected as part of an effort between Walmart and the Salvation Army, were stolen on Tuesday night. I'll be right back with sports and weather.
Could you use monthly payments to help meet basic needs, like putting food on the table, paying the rent, or buying new shoes for growing feet? Find out about Supplemental Security Income. You may qualify if your income and financial resources are low and you are 65 or older, or an adult or child with a disability or who is blind. Call 1-800-772-1213 or go to ssa.gov/SSI. Produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer expense.
In sports, we've got nothing really to report as all our teams were inactive yesterday. So here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Cloudy skies with high temperatures in the mid-30s. Currently, cloudy and 34 in Cleveland, 31 Akron and Canton, 33 in Lorain and Elyria.
It's time for your moron moment.
Most homes have a wreath decorating their door for the holiday season. The Christmas wreath originally symbolized the crown of thorns worn by Jesus, and the red berries represented his blood. So even while we celebrate the birth of Christ, we're looking forward to his eventual death and resurrection as well. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 7:06. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
WCRF 710, how did Americans get so sad and mean? It's what one author wanted to figure out, and he has a proposal and thinks he's figured it out. We'll talk about that in a moment, but first I have to tell you, it's time to get your Walk-Worthy Men's Conference tickets. Guys, this is where we all get together. It's been a 25, 6, 7-year tradition.
What are you asking?
How many years? Walk-Worthy?
Since 1992, so 32.
32-year tradition in Northeast Ohio.
So don't break it now.
Yeah, why would you do that? So get your ticket. It's Saturday, March 1st, Canton Baptist Temple. Get your friends together, your uncle, your dad, your brother, whatever, your neighbor. Text WALK to 440-546-2255. Text WALK to 440-546-2255.
And I tell you what, if you buy a ticket, we'll even provide lunch for you.
There it is. Absolutely. And Ron might show up.
Yep. Good Lord willing and the creek don't rise.
And if you're watching the video, you can see that I missed my bell about 4 times before I actually hit it. Text live to 440-546-2255. I struck out hitting my bell. Okay.
Nice reference.
It was a sports reference, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Good job.
It's totally a grand slam.
You don't have to keep going.
Okay. So David Brooks wrote a really long article for The Atlantic. I saved you all time by reading it for you.
Thank you. That's your job. Do you want me to tip you for that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. So he's been obsessed with 2 questions, he says. Why have Americans become so sad, and why have they become so mean? To what extent do you all agree with those 2 sentiments? Like that those things are true, that he's worried about that?
Yes, we've talked a lot about loneliness being an epidemic. I think sadness kind of goes along with that. And mean, yeah. I do see more people, especially the keyboard warriors or thumb warriors, whatever you call them, who, they get a kick out of how rude they can be in their replies to someone online.
Even as we just talked about, Walmart's thinking about putting body cameras on employees. What other reason than people are mean?
Yeah, I was going to say the rise in what culture is calling the Karens, people just being mean for what seems like really no reason, or there's a reason, but their response is really too big.
Yeah.
The response is like way too big for the situation.
And so he kind of summarizes this as hatred, anxiety, and despair seem to like permeate American culture. Hatred, anxiety, and despair. I think it's fairly reasonable. He says that there's generally 4 different explanations for this. None of them satisfy him. One of them is the technology story, that social media is totally to blame because it's driving us all crazy. Another one, he said, is the sociology story, that we've stopped participating in community organizations and are more isolated. We've talked about both of these, by the way, at length.
And they're related.
Yeah, and what was the community one? Was it the third place we called it?
Yeah.
That was really a compelling argument. The 4th story being told on this one, he said, is the demography story. He says that some would say America, long a white-dominated nation, is becoming much more diverse, a change that has millions of white Americans in a panic. Whether or not you like that explanation, some people are saying that.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree, but I imagine there is a segment of the population that does affect them.
Yeah, so again, what he's saying is there's 4 common explanations as to why anxiety, hatred, and despair permeate American culture. And he's not saying he agrees with them. He's just saying that they exist. Okay, the 4th and final explanation that's often given is the economy story. High levels of economic inequality and insecurity had left people afraid, alienated, and pessimistic.
Yeah, I think that is most adequately demonstrated with what just happened with the United Healthcare CEO. I mean, to think there are people celebrating the death of anyone is just unfathomable. You wouldn't have seen that, I think, even 5 years ago, let alone 10. But I do think people are they're very angry because some people have a lot and there are more people that have very little.
And now he says that he agrees with us in a sense that, yeah, all 4 of those explain some of it. He's not satisfied that it really explains, like none of them in isolation explain everything. They all have their own weak points. So he says the most important story, in his opinion, why Americans have become sad and alienated and rude, he said, is also the simplest one. And here's his. We inhabit a society in which people are no longer trained in how to treat others with kindness and consideration. Our society has become one in which people feel licensed to give their selfishness free rein. Like, we no longer value and teach character building in our country any longer. Are you compelled yet? Are you processing?
I'm having a hard time grasping onto it, but I'm open to hearing more.
Yeah, he gave an example. Like he talked about across political philosophy and even life philosophy for much of American history until about the 1960s, people prioritized moral character building. Like the purpose of education until the 1960s was character building.
And even the Bill Gothard Institute for Basic Life Education or whatever, character was a big part of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of bad things went along with it, but there was some good there.
Yeah, in fact, he said that Americans used to be obsessed with moral education. Then he gives pages of examples of how, for much of American history, that was the case. One of my favorite examples is in a Benjamin Franklin quote. Now, Benjamin Franklin was not a Christian, but he agreed with the founders in that they were, if you don't know this, they were very skeptical of trusting the people. Now, I know we idealize the founders, but they created a constitutional republic in a way that really separates the people from government in fairly dramatic ways because they don't trust the people to be good. In fact, here's what Benjamin Franklin wrote. Men I find to be a sort of beings very badly constructed, as they are generally more easily provoked than reconciled, more disposed to mischief to each other than to make reparation, and much more easily deceived than undeceived.
Does he know that he's one of those mans?
Yeah, I think he does.
Okay.
We hope he was self-aware.
But ultimately, there was a universal agreement that we're all sinners.
Mm-hmm.
And then something shifted in the 1960s. And he's got some more explanation I want to chat with you guys about. We're going to get to it here in just a minute, but where are we now so far? Like he said, essentially, yeah, all the other stuff contributes, social media, economics, all that. America used to be obsessed with building moral character, and we no longer care. In fact, he really will point to, even in our education system, we've shifted completely away from moral character. And what we care about now is academic achievement so that one can build wealth. That's our goal. We'll get to more here on WCRF in just a minute.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join MediShare and save even more than usual. For many families, joining MediShare means saving about $500 a month, which is a game changer for a lot of people, obviously. But what's more, MediShare members like it a lot. Their satisfaction rate is 98%. Imagine that. And MediShare is a proven thing, too, for over 30 years. It's a Christian community of hundreds of thousands of people now. And here's the thing. If you join before December 31st and you mention the promo code SHARE, they'll waive your application fee. So you save even more right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call and you'll get a price within 2 minutes. And again, the deadline is December 31st. So call now and you'll save even more. Here's the number, 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE, 877-58-BIBLE.
How exciting if God calls you to missionary aviation. Moody Bible Institute offers the missionary aviation technology degree with a maintenance specialist emphasis. It includes engine overhaul, airframe rebuild, turbine engine maintenance and repair, avionics systems installation, and much more. Get started on your application today at moody.edu/aviation. Over 65 years of missionary aviation training. What an exciting way to serve God. moody.edu/aviation.
May the Lord grant you and all your loved ones much peace, joy, and goodwill. Merry Christmas to you and yours from your friends at Mornings with Brian and Moody Radio Cleveland.
And the perfect Christmas gift for the man in your life is tickets to the Walkworthy Men's Conference. It's coming up Saturday, March 1st, Canton Baptist Temple. You can buy your tickets now at a discounted early bird rate. Just text the word WALK to 440-546-2255. We've spent a lot of time talking about a modern phenomena on the show. We are in the midst of a loneliness epidemic, and there appears to be ultimately a rage problem in our country. I mean, increasing incidents that just display, and we've talked about it at length already. People are angry. People are angry and lonely. And we've tried to explain it. Some people say it's social media. Some say it's the economy, shifting demographics. But David Brooks at The Atlantic says it really is that for decades we've stopped caring in America about the building of character as part of becoming a citizen. We've abandoned character building activities in school in lieu of let's see if we can get our kids to score really high on math and science so they can become rich and famous and go to a big college.
What were these character building things in school? I'm not sure I completely understand where he's saying we used to do this and now we don't. What are we not doing?
And part of it would be that none of us were raised in an environment where this was the reality. because he says the shift happened post-World War II. And it used to be that, in fact, the Founding Fathers would have talked about how important moral character and virtue is to the success of a democracy. But he gives a lot of examples. I didn't dig in too deep, but education philosophy at the time, all the philosophers said, like, for example, a character is the main object of education, said one. Another said, the virtue of men are of more consequence to society than their abilities, and for this reason, the heart should be cultivated with more assiduity than the head.
I'm not like totally with this guy because I think it's more new than that. I think the rage
The
and
intensity?
I think the rage and anger we're seeing today is newer than post-World War II. It's not like, all of a sudden, like right after World War II, we stopped teaching how to have moral character development, and so people started getting angry. It's like recent. In the last 10 years, maybe?
Yeah, I'm with Lauren. I think this is probably just a turn of the millennium problem.
But he gives some more. Let me give you more of his evidence, see if it sways you. One of the more interesting pieces of research he found was that over the course of the 20th century, words relating to morality appeared less and less frequently in our nation's books. According to a 2020 or 2012 paper, usage of a cluster of words related to being virtuous declined significantly. So, for example, bravery, that word, dropped by 65% in American literature and writing. Gratitude dropped by 58%. Humbleness dropped by 55%. Like even just the usage of words related to virtue and character has dramatically declined.
And a lot of character was historically defined as here is how to be a gentleman and here is how to be a lady. And that has kind of gone to the wind with the feminist movement. There's some of that. What was ladylike is, scoffed at now. It's like there's no reason we have to be different than men. And a lot of the gentlemanly, well, with the transgender thing, it's like you can't label me like that. So I think some of those movements have maybe affected the training in that regard.
Well, he even says that in the 1960s, our country shifted from consensus that people are inherently bad, philosophically, from the Enlightenment. Remember that debate happened for many years? To there being really a stark division. And I would say most people you encounter today think people are really at their core pretty good.
Ooh.
Most
agree.
movies draw on this. Like if you just seek out your inner goodness, things will work out okay.
Do you think we maybe saw a stark rise in individualism in the 60s as well, whereas before things were much more family-oriented?
But Lauren, you are agreeing in the shift in perspective on the nature of humanity in our culture.
Yes. Yeah, I think today people believe that people are ultimately good, which is not true.
I mean, to me, the idea that Benjamin Franklin, a non-religious person, was convinced people are inherently wicked, it's an anomaly. He would not fit in a non-religious group today. So are you convinced even more now? A little bit more?
More convinced.
That lack
of
of teaching of moral character and virtue has declined?
It has. And maybe this decline has been going on for a while, but I really do think you saw, and I can't speak into this a ton because I really don't know the world a whole lot different than what it is now. But I really do think you saw the sharp incline in the character qualities he's describing with the advent of social media, because it has allowed us to become more fragmented. You have your algorithm now, which is completely curated to what you want to see. You get to live in an echo chamber. You get to be fed exactly what you want to hear, and you don't need anybody else. You've got the world at your fingertips.
And I think it's easy for Christians to somehow sit on a high horse in this discussion and say, well, we believe in the sinfulness of man and the righteousness of Christ. So if these people just listen to us more, things would be better. And I think that's absolutely not the case, because I think Christians have fallen victim to this same shift, dramatically so. What are Christians known for in our culture? Being angry. Not saying they all are, but
we're always against something.
Againstness. Yeah. And it shouldn't be novel, But one of the novel things about what we do on this show is we simply remind people about the character of Christ and that we're supposed to reflect it. I'm pulling back the curtain. That's the secret. Reminding people to love their enemy. And it's controversial.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be. One of the things he shared in here, I want to know your reaction to this. He said, according to research by Ryan Streeter, the director of domestic policy studies at the American Enterprise Institute, lonely young people are 7 times more likely to say that they are active in politics than young people who aren't lonely. For people who feel disrespected, unseen, and alone, politics is a seductive form of social therapy. It offers them a comprehensible moral landscape. The line between good and evil runs not down the middle of every human heart, but between groups. Life is a struggle between us, the forces of good, and them, the forces of evil.
I think to an extent, people nowadays, especially young people, kind of see themselves as gods. I dictate reality however I want to, and I can and will shape the world as I see fit through political activism.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've forgotten the simplicity of the call of Christ, you know? I mean, the whole salt and light passage. If you just look at the salt and the light part, you can misinterpret it. But the summary of the end of it, Jesus says, so let your good deeds shine for others to see, that they give glory to your Father in heaven.
Right.
Like our character is what sets us apart. And yet it doesn't.
Yeah, and we think that because we've found truth in Christ and we know that we are ultimately bad and that we're only good because of Christ, that we're allowed to be angry at others because they don't know what's true.
Right, yes.
And they're doing things wrong. And so we get to be mean to them and we get to be mean about the things that they do. But we were there too once. We also were doing things that we weren't supposed to be doing. We didn't know what was true. We didn't have Christ making us good, because nothing you've done has made you good. So for us to go around being mean to other people because we're good now, it's not who Christ is. And Christ wasn't mean to people because they didn't know the truth. He was actually overwhelmingly kind and welcoming them into the Trinity.
You summarize that perfectly. And I'm trying to figure out like how to even characterize that, because we don't fit into his description, right?
No.
Because what he's saying is that the lack of character building and character teaching is the problem in our country. That may be true for the non-believer.
Yeah, because non-believers can still be kind and gracious and generous.
And we're taught those things.
Yes.
We're just not doing them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say we, don't be offended. I'm talking about me too.
I think we as Christians have a higher calling to be kind and gracious and generous. It's not just a character development thing.
Yes. So how are we getting this important subtlety so wrong?
Subtlety of what?
Like, we have turned the idea that we are the only ones left who think people are inherently wicked into permission to be angry and rude. Like, we agree with one truth, and it's somehow a universal truth. And we're one of the only ones left who believe it.
Yeah.
And yet we've somehow turned that into an excuse to be rude.
Yeah, that's all wrong.
But you see the subtlety of it, though?
Yeah.
It's like, to me, there's a natural human tendency to go, you people don't get it. You used to agree with us that we're all a mess, and now you don't.
Yeah, I often have to, like, when I'm feeling angry at someone or something, or looking at people's sin, I have to remind myself of what Jesus said on the cross, is they know not what they do.
Yeah.
They don't know. And so your anger is only going to push them away. Your unkindness, your meanness is only going to push them away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to draw them close to Christ, because what you're showing is not Christ-likeness.
And without Jesus, we'd be just as lost.
Oh, yeah.
And the harder path is to show people through our conforming our hearts and minds and lives and behaviors and attitudes to Christ. It's a more difficult path individually and culturally. But I mean, we think somehow we're going to change people's minds by either legislating changes or yelling loud enough.
Mm-hmm.
When the truth is, what Jesus did and the character he displayed and called us to is the only way to do it well. Maybe we can rediscover it as a church. I've encountered people who, on a regular basis, who that's their heart. We try to cultivate a list of guests that come on the show that have that heart. That defines their heart. They want to deeply conform their heart to Christ, and they love their neighbor because of it. I don't know. Some food for thought. Look at us getting all deep and philosophical. All right, coming up in a few minutes, you know and love him, Roy, facilitator of Galvanized. It's a men's recovery ministry at Grace Church of Middleburg Heights. He's going to give us some spiritual insights around the holidays.
When we're told that he is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, it's not simply that God was there at the beginning and he will be still there at the end. No, his eternity encompasses it all. He is the beginning and the end, even now.
Here's Jonathan Griffiths with today's Moment of Truth.
That's why God can make statements like the one found in Isaiah 46 and verse 9. I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from the earliest times what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. Unlike you and me, God doesn't look back wistfully on the past. He's not consumed by the present. He's not troubled in waiting for the future. He sees all of time as a vivid whole before his eternal gaze. He sees the creation. He sees the fall. He sees the flood. He sees the call of Abram. He sees the monarchy of Israel. He sees the exile. He sees the incarnation. He sees the early church. He sees the medieval period. He sees the Reformation. He sees the great world wars. He sees our assembly here today. None of history is lost or filed away in a dusty cabinet for God. As the psalmist says here in Psalm 90 and verse 4, for 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. Now, I don't pretend to be able to understand or fully conceptualize all those things. And there are limits to our understanding of God's eternity because he hasn't told us everything. But from what the scriptures do tell us, these things must be true of the eternal God who made time, who is himself eternal in his being, who never changes, who knows the end from the beginning.
This has been today's Moment of Truth. To learn more, visit encounterthetruth.org.
Hey, my name is Brant Hansen, and if you want to see something incredibly encouraging, miraculous even, go to cure.org/moody. Go look at these before and after photos of kids who have been healed in the name of Jesus at Cure International children's hospitals around the world. Probably the best website in the world, and I'm not kidding, because it shows what God is doing. He's still at work through us. He's healing. It's so worth your time. Just look. It's so good. Cure.org/moody.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Francesca Battistelli, 737. Can you have your holiday celebration be something that is helpful and or sensitive to someone who's in recovery? We're going to talk about that with our friend Roy, a facilitator of Galvanized. But again, first reminder, early bird pricing available right now for the Walkworthy Men's Conference. And we're going to be off for a couple of weeks at the end of the year, so we're not going to get to remind you very often. If you need a reminder, this is it. Get your tickets Saturday, March 1st, Canton Baptist Temple. Text WALK to 440-546-2255. All right, it's a men's recovery ministry at Grace Church in Middleburg Heights. It's called Galvanized. Roy runs it, and he's back. What's up, Roy?
Good morning. How are you guys?
Doing great, man. I love this topic. It's so important because I think as Christians, we got to be sensitive to people in our lives and our families who are in recovery. But sometimes people are not, right?
Most of the time we're not. Sometimes we are, but we do it in the wrong way too. So.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Well, all right. So we've got two different perspectives on this. We've got the person and the people that are their support people, right? Uh-huh. So which way do you want to look at it? Should we let Daria pick? I don't know.
I always like to let Daria pick.
Daria, shall we look at the perspective of the person that's in recovery or the people that are supporting the person in recovery first?
Let's look at the person that's in recovery.
Person that's in recovery.
Correct.
All right. Well chosen, Daria. She didn't even hesitate. Do you see that? She just came right at it, Brian. She's fitting in, I got to tell you.
Yeah, she's the best.
Yeah. So when you're the person, you're responsible for your own recovery. Nobody else is responsible for your recovery. You have to know that family, and we all know this, right? Family sometimes can be the most challenging places. Jesus, when he comes back into his hometown, has difficulty with the people that knew him the best, right? It was like the people in these foreign towns, they're like, oh, yeah, we believe this guy. But they're like, that's Joseph's son. He's a carpenter. That guy, he can't be, right? So it's going to be a difficult time. A lot of people have hard times going around their family, people that don't understand and things like that. The first thing that I do is I provide my own transportation. Now, that might sound a little silly, but if you drive and your brother says, hey, Brian, I'll pick you up and we'll go to Mom's for Christmas. No, thank you. I'm going to drive myself.
Why?
Always. Well, because if you have to leave for some reason, now you're trying to convince somebody else to go.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I do is I never park in the driveway because nothing is worse than trying to get one, two, or even more, especially if they're drinking, people to get together to simultaneously move their cars so you can get out of the driveway because you were on time and you parked in the front and there's 4 people parked behind you and now you can't get out of the driveway and you really want to leave and you're not feeling comfortable, but you're trapped because the car that you drove is parked in the driveway. So I always tell people in recovery, park on the street. Park somewhere where you're the last spot in the driveway or park on the street. Don't be bound by somebody else in order to make your quick exit, right? Because you've got to protect your own recovery. And if things start getting, sideways and people are drinking or getting a little crazy or somebody brings something up that's really not okay, and you have to just say, hey, guys, it was a great Christmas. I'm out of here. You don't want to be like, oh, and where's Uncle Brian? He's outside drinking, playing darts, smoking a cigar. Brian, can you please move your car? Yeah, no problem. Now you got to find Aunt Ron. Ron coming to move your car, right? And now by the time you find Ron, Brian's gone. So the first thing I always do is I arrange my transportation correctly. And I tell people to do the same thing. Drive yourself. Keep your keys in your pocket. Don't go set them on the table at Mom's house. Leave them in your pocket and, park accordingly.
It's practical advice. Good stuff. What else you got for those who are in recovery?
It seems kind of silly. If you're in recovery, know your boundaries before you go. Okay. And I think this applies in all life, right? If you're going to a wedding, but know your boundaries before you go. Now, a little disclaimer. I was talking to one guy, my good buddy Nathan, and I was explaining to him, and so he was at an event, and he declared what his boundaries are. You're crossing. I'm like, all right, you do not need to declare what your boundaries are. Like, Mom, I've set a clear boundary that when we talk about I'm going to leave, it's don't do that because that just really riles people up. It's like pouring gas on a fire to put it out. Instead, just know what your boundaries are. Like, look, I know my dad drinks, and as soon as he starts cracking beers, it always happens right around this time, and then he starts getting crazy, I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not going to try to change him. I'm just going to be like, hey, I got somewhere to, like, I have a plan. Oh, guys, I got to visit Brian from Moody Radio today. I need to leave at 9 o'clock. I'm going to cut out. Thanks, guys. It was great. I got to go. Oh, why do you got to go? Oh, I got to, and instead of saying, well, I've set my limits. And when Dad starts on his third beer, as soon as the whiskey bottle comes out, I'm out of here. You don't do that because that just riles people up. And this isn't about anybody else. It's about ourselves. So setting the boundaries, what you are not willing to accept is key because you at least go in there with a plan. You know what I mean? And sometimes, unfortunately, as humans, we set plans. We say, I am not spending more than $200. You go into Costco, and next thing you know, you're glaring at this 100-inch TV, and you're like, oh, man. This cognitive dissonance starts setting in. You start to think about, well, maybe, and you're starting to justify how maybe you'll have a Bible study. So you start to change your plan along the way. And that happens too. But at least if you have a plan, you have a chance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then the last thing I would say is, set your boundaries. So transportation, have clear boundaries, and have a plan. And the plan, so we said boundaries would be like, hey, I'm not going to, if they start drinking or if my mom brings up my divorce or, whatever, if that one cousin that abused me shows up, I'm leaving, whatever, you set those boundaries. And then the plan, like having this overall plan, like I'm planning on staying for 4 hours. Like, I know that's how long, I know sometimes I stay too long and I always end up getting hurt, or I'm going to fill in the blank. And this preparation work, I think, makes us more at ease. Like, I know some guys that when I ask them to speak or teach at Galvanize, they get like anxiety and they're stressing, they're sweating, and they're like, we're in the hallway praying before just to calm them down. And I said, look, if you're prepared, you should have no problem, right? If you're prepared, your subject matter. Like, Brian, you could impromptu jump into a radio show and probably do just fine, and nobody would know that you prepared or didn't prepare for the day, right? You could walk in late, and Daria could hand you the script. Like, this is what we're going over today. These are our callers. Oh, my gosh, I don't have any notes from Roy, but we're just going to wing this interview. And you'd do fine. Why? Because you know your subject matter. You've been there. You've done it. You've got some experience, right? And the same thing applies here. Yeah, see? Is that because I set my responses so late last night that I had to say
that? No.
Or sometimes I send them first thing in the morning. Hey, Brian. But yeah, so just that, transportation, boundaries, and have a plan. So that's from the user's perspective. Brian, we should probably go to a break before we follow from the.
You're so conscientious about our breaks. I think that's a great idea. And we're going to go to the rest of us who are not in recovery. What can we do around the holidays here in just a minute?
There are over 700,000 villages in India filled with people waiting to hear about Jesus. Imagine what could happen if every one of them had access to an audio Bible that speaks their language. Talking Bibles International is on a mission to place one Talking Bible in every village in India by 2033. Help India hear about Jesus. To join us on this mission, visit talkingbibles.org/India. That's talkingbibles.org/India.
This holiday season, transform your family time with Today in the Word Family Studies. Teach your children the true meaning of Christmas with our December family study, Waiting for Jesus. Our fun-filled family devotional breaks down complex themes of the Bible and makes the Word of God accessible to your kids. To download this month's free family study, go to todayintheword.com/family. Spend time in God's Word together. Go to todayintheword.com/family.
When it comes to investments, timing is everything. Hi, I'm Rob West of Faith and Finance. The same is true of your investment in Moody Radio, because if you send a gift to Moody Radio by December 31st, they'll send you a copy of Joe Stoll's new book, This Light of Mine. It will equip you to share the truth of the gospel without alienating those who need to hear it the most. Thanks for helping Moody Radio shine the light of Christ.
Click donate at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Moody Radio, 749. Roy, stop dancing. We got to get back to the topic here. Roy loves a good jazz hands move on the dance floor.
I was doing jazz hands, I'll have to admit.
He is facilitator of Galvanized Men's Recovery Ministry at Grace Church in Middleburg Heights, and he's very persnickety about soft-shell tacos. We won't bring it up, even though I just did. But he's got a lot of issues, and we're not talking about those today because Lauren will get mad at me that I'm not allowed to.
I get in trouble every time you bring that up. I get in trouble.
I get in trouble too, so we're not going to talk about it, Roy. We're done.
Okay. Our interviews are always on Thursday, we usually get together on Wednesday or Thursday, so it's always like, oh, tomorrow. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, but now we're back to it. We're talking about how to survive the holidays when you're in recovery or someone you love's in recovery. You're welcome, Lauren, back on track. And so what about the support and family perspective? How can we be supportive of someone in recovery?
Okay. Well, thanks, Daria, for choosing the other side of it now.
Yes, Daria.
You're welcome.
Like how I did that? Yeah, she's awesome for that. Now, so the first half we talked about the user's perspective, the person that's trying to stay sober, trying to stay away from, we'll say trying to implement a life change for the better. The second half is from the people that, let's assume they actually do care about this person and are trying to support people because, in a lot of cases, the families are like, hey, man, you're the person with the problem, not me. Right? Like, I'm going to drink beer. That's what I do. It's my vacation and you're coming to my house. So too bad. You know what I mean? That's not an uncommon response. Not everybody is like, oh, my brother is in recovery and I just want to support him. It's generally, I would say more often than not the case. But let's assume, for the sake of Moody Radio, that you are a person that is wanting to support, love, and care for your person, family, husband, wife, brother, sister, cousin, whatever that is trying to change their life and has an addiction to either drugs, alcohol, even pornography, even gambling, whatever the addiction is, there's certain things that are going to, you just constantly talking about, betting on the Browns or betting on somebody to the gambling addict brother is probably not a great idea. Mm-hmm. So putting on the inappropriate things or just leaving on, putting something on TV or whatever, when somebody might be struggling with, some type of addiction of some sexual nature, right? Trying to be conscientious. But here's the thing, two things. You don't need to say it. And I mean, seriously, don't say it. If I show up at your house, Brian, and you know that I'm sober now, and you're like, hey, Brian, listen, like you almost whisper it, Uncle Jim brought beer and it's in the refrigerator and I want you to be okay. Are you okay if he did that? Right? Like, don't do that. That just makes it weird and uncomfortable. We all know that I don't drink. My whole family knows that I don't drink. You know why they know? Because I don't drink. And they watched my life implode. They know that I don't drink. They don't have to come up to me and be like, hey, I just want you to know, we're going to be over at Uncle Jim's tonight. And, he always has his whiskey. And so, or they're going to have, don't drink that punch. That one's got alcohol and rum in that punch. You know what I mean? You don't have to do that. You don't have to make the other person feel like an alien.
But Roy, right. Someone's sweet mother just loves them and they want them to be safe and comfortable. So they, okay, Roy, just, Uncle Jim brought beer.
Themselves.
What?
Right. And they can't help themselves. And what I'm saying is, if you really want to help them, don't do that. Because then it makes you feel even awkward. It's like going up to somebody. Brian's going to walk out to the men's conference, right? And he's going to stalk on the stage and go, hey, Brian, listen, you're going to do great out there. I want you to know that there's like 3 people out there that are scouting you from the world's biggest radio station. And if you screw this up, that's our funding. And we're going to be like shut down. So, I mean, get out there and knock it out. But, dude, seriously, really be. You're like, come on, why did you do that? If you'd have just shut up, I'd have went out there and done a great job.
That's
you know what I mean? There's no reason to do that. The person doesn't treat me like I'm normal. I had one buddy a long time ago, and I remember I was like 8 months sober, and I was talking to we were camping. I used to race motocross, and we were in this Southern Ohio. We were at this place we were camping, and he goes, dude, you don't have to tell people that you quit drinking. You just tell them you don't drink. He goes, I don't drink, and I never quit drinking. And I kind of thought about it. I was like, in recovery, I'm always like, oh, no, I don't drink anymore. I don't drink. You could just go, I don't eat sardines. My wife will, but I don't eat sardines, and I don't think you could convince me with enough peer pressure to eat a sardine. Like if there may be enough money to force me to, but I'm not going to just go, you're not, come on, everybody's eating them, Brian. Come on. All right, since everybody else is eating what, it's just, I just don't. You know what I mean? So if I just don't drink, why isn't it just normal? Why can't you just treat me normal? So the first part is, don't say it. Just treat them normal, right? You don't have to point it out like it's some kind of weird thing on their forehead that needs to be popped. It's like, just let it be normal,
Yeah, don't lecture Uncle Jim. Hey, Uncle Jim, you stop that. Roy's in recovery.
Yeah, and just so you know, he's in recovery and he doesn't drink. Would you mind? And then
just
Uncle
stop
Jim's
it.
like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And then he's like, hide it don't hide it. People do that too. They like hide their beer, hide their wine. When I'm like, come on, guys. You think I can smell it when I walk in the room? You think I don't know that you're drinking? Like, I don't care. The other part is, if you don't have a problem, then why should you? Okay. And let me point this out. So I went to a party once, and it was through church, and we were going to this, they called it Smoothie and a Movie, and they had a small group, and we were all going.
I don't think I've heard that one before. That's pretty good. Lauren's in.
Smoothie movie. And he's like, hey, we're going to watch this movie. And it was like a bunch of couples from this small group were coming to this guy's house. And they said, does anybody have a blender? And I'm like, yeah, hey, I got a Vitamix blender. I'll bring it over. It's really great. The guy calls me separately and he goes, hey, I just want to make sure you're clear. When I mean smoothie, I don't mean like margaritas and pina coladas. So don't bring alcohol. And I was laughing because I'm like, I'm the last person that's going to bring alcohol. But so we got there and I asked the guy, I go, why did you say that? Or did you think, like, I took it all personal, like he thought like I was a mess or something. And I'm like, why did you say that to me? And then he explained, he said, he doesn't really drink, but once in a while he'll have a beer, a glass of wine, no big deal. But they had a 4th of July party. And he thought he would buy like a 6-pack of beer, a 12-pack of beer, and put it in the cooler just in case any of his guests wanted to have a drink. He wasn't doing it for himself. He said he didn't even drink any of it. But one guy that came from church had an alcohol problem. And him and his wife were in the verge of getting divorced, but they worked it out. And they were about 5 or 6 months sober, back together. And he went to the cooler to get pop, water, whatever. And he saw a beer and he drank it. And that night, the guy left the house and went out and got a case of beer or whatever, and sat and drank, came home, got in a huge fight. The wife divorced him, and it was like the last straw in their family. And he said, I don't have a problem with alcohol. Take it or leave it. So if I know Brian is coming to my party and I know he does have a problem, why wouldn't I make this a day where I just leave it? I can drink any other day of the year.
Yeah.
I can drink any other hour of the year. Why do I if I don't have a problem, then why do I have to drink when Brian is at my house when I know Brian has a drinking problem?
And for clarity's sake, just for those tuning in, Brian does not, lest we get angry mail.
Probably does. Probably does.
After you're on the show,
who
maybe.
He should have a drinking problem. I've seen this. No, I'm just kidding. They're both going to cut me when I come in next time.
Yeah, they will. Literally.
No, but trust me, I figured one of them for sure. At least she's behind the glass. We won't say who it is.
Her name rhymes with Daria, though. That's for sure.
But I don't know if that makes any sense. But
yeah, it does.
If I don't have a problem and you're coming to my house, then I just won't drink that night. And if I can't just not drink that night, then maybe I have a problem. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. If it really is take it or leave it, then what's the big deal? Why tonight? You know what I mean? It's not like I'm saying, hey, I don't want you to do the wedding toast at your child's wedding with the champagne because it might offend me. That's not what I'm saying. We're talking about just hanging out, right?
Yeah, it's just being sensitive to the other person. It's that biblical principle of considering others as more important than yourself. And yeah, if you know someone's coming over that has an issue and they're in recovery, goodness sakes, take a break. What's the big deal?
Yeah, unless you can't, right?
And then that's
unless
a big deal.
You can't. And then it's a big deal. Then it's like, so if you're sitting there saying to yourself, well, I know my brother's coming over today, and I know he doesn't drink, but I really want to, that you should be questioning yourself.
Yeah.
And saying, well, why can't I, right? So just in a recap, from the user's perspective, provide your own transportation. Keep your keys with you, set your boundaries and have a plan. Go there with intention. Step with intention. And from the friends, family, adjacent people perspective, don't make a big deal out of it. You don't need to tell them, and like empathize. And I know, is it hard for you to be here with everyone drinking? You don't have to say that, because if the person prepared in the first part, they know that there's going to be drinking there, and they know how long they're willing to stay, and they know what their boundaries are. So you don't have to emphasize that to make it oddly uncomfortable. Don't say it. And the second part is, if you don't have a problem, then don't make it a problem. Right. And so that's some Cliff's Notes versions of, I don't even know if those are out anymore, but Cliff's Notes versions. Remember those, the yellow and black?
I do remember those. Yeah.
Most people don't. They're like, what does that mean? I go, gosh, I date myself. Daria's like shaking her head. She doesn't know what that means.
Those got me through some classes in college.
All right.
I was a tryhard. I was afraid to use them. Like I get caught.
Whatever. I don't think they were ever wrong. They were just a summary.
Yeah.
AI does that now for you. AI will summarize your chat thread. It'll say, what most people are saying is, isn't that crazy? Right? The kids these days, they just use Ask GPT.
But hey, Roy, one old guy to another. Let's tell people how to get help, because they can get help from their problem, whatever their addiction is, and they can get that at Grace Church through Galvanized.
Grace Church in Middleburg Heights. We meet upstairs every Friday. We will be there tomorrow. I'll probably get yelled at for taco shells. And we will also be there next Friday. A lot of times, ministries, groups, recovery, whatever, they don't necessarily meet when it's too close to a holiday sometimes. We will still be there on Friday, next Friday as well. Come out tomorrow night, 7:30 to 9, upstairs. You can look us up. Galvanized.life is our website. You can also go to gracecma.org and call the church. People do a plethora of things. You could call Brian. He'll give you my personal cell phone number, and then you could, put it out there on the Google. And then
great idea. Yeah, I'm going to dox you when we're done here. That's a great idea.
Appreciate that.
But if someone needs an excuse and you feel uncomfortable going to Galvanized, you can just tell them that I sent you. Just is Roy around? Be like, hey, Roy, Brian told me I should come today.
Project. Yeah, I'm doing a research project for college, and I'm supposed to just sit around a bunch of drunks and see what it's like.
Or you could just say Brian sent me. That's fine.
Roy, just show up, right? It's really quite comfortable. You show up, there'll be some people laughing, some people having a good time, some people sitting there. There's coffee, there's desserts, there's food sometimes, and it's real casual. There's nobody's going to make you, come up front and
that's right.
Tell all about yourself. You're just going to kind of blend in until you feel comfortable. So.
That's it. Again, Roy, facilitator of Galvanized Men's Recovery Ministry at Grace Church. Thanks for your time and your great tips today.
You got it. We will talk to you guys next year.
Can't wait. It'll be like a year since I talked to you. That's what it'll feel like.
It will feel like it.
Yeah. All right. Jokes aside, it's time for Ron's News, today's Moron Moment, and then Dave Szfranski will answer your financial questions. 440-546-2255.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
The Dow Jones fell drastically yesterday, losing over 1,000 points right before the market closed. It's 8:03. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. At the closing bell, the Dow lost 1,123 points. The S&P 500 lost 178 points, and the Nasdaq fell over 3.5%. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 1/4 point, but investors turned sour when they learned the Fed would likely cut rates only twice in 2025. Ohio lawmakers are continuing to debate a bill which would allow for public schools to permanently expel students from schools. House Bill 206 would allow students to be expelled indefinitely for dangerous or threatening behavior, such as bringing a gun or knife to school and/or making a bomb threat. And the deadline to mail out holiday cards and packages to ensure they arrive in time for Christmas is here. The U.S. Postal Service says the deadline to send first-class mail or to use USPS Ground Advantage is today. The deadline to send priority mail is Thursday, and the deadline to send via Priority Mail Express will be Saturday. Sports and weather coming right up.
Hope lives because a tiny baby born in a manger changed everything forever. Let's celebrate that hope this season with Moody Radio's Music of Christmas. And it's on now, streaming all of your Christmas favorites at musicofchristmas.org. Listen on your smartphone through the new Moody Radio app. Start celebrating today at musicofchristmas.org.
In sports, there's really nothing to report. All our teams were inactive yesterday, so moving on to our Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Cloudy skies with high temperatures in the mid-30s. Our most recent statistics show cloudy and 33 in Cleveland, cloudy and 31 Akron and Canton. Mansfield, cloudy and 31 as well.
It's time for your moron moment.
Most homes have a wreath decorating their door for the holiday season. This Christmas wreath originally symbolized the crown of thorns worn by Jesus, and the red berries represented his blood. So even while we celebrate the birth of Christ, we're looking forward to his eventual death and resurrection as well. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 8:06 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine studio, it's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
The opinions expressed during this program represent the opinions of the participants and is given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace professional advice for your specific situation.
He's ready to answer your financial questions at 440-546-2255. It's David Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group.
Yay. And I have a major announcement today that we'll get to at some point in time. Major announcement.
I got a preview. It's very exciting.
You've opened up a retirement plan for each of us and fully vested.
Oh my
gosh.
Not that major.
Yeah,
You've made me the
You laughed way too
beneficiary
hard at that.
of all your accounts.
Of my life insurance.
You've made me executor of your trust.
My gosh.
There's a drop date for your book finally.
Oh, I have the manuscript. I have it on my...
that's a step.
Yeah.
That's
No,
a step.
It's actually being written. It's...
Not by you.
No, it is. It is. It's
You're
my
dictating
words.
it to someone.
It's my words.
You can't type?
Look, I am a busy man. I don't got time for all this stuff.
No one made you release a book.
Well, with your staff doing all those chores, I'm not quite sure why you're so busy. One of your greatest regrets in life is that.
One of my greater regrets. I have a lot of them too. So,
and the red shovel.
Yes.
Is red shovel above or below the chores?
The red shovel is above, for sure. Yes.
I thought you were proud of that red shovel.
Well,
he was until he saw her face.
I was. It was really funny. But, it was funny in kind of like a sarcastic way. And sarcasm really isn't an uplifting quality to...
No, it isn't.
Well, wives don't like sarcasm. This is what I've learned.
Yes, they don't. When it's coming from you. Yeah, your wife does not like your sarcasm.
This is what I've learned.
It took me many years to figure this. I remember where I was when I finally figured it out.
Yeah, in the doghouse.
Right. No, Sarah had to literally say, Brian, when you say that to me, it really hurts my feelings. I don't like when you joke with me like that.
Wow.
And I was like, oh,
Now
I get it.
She had to say it plain.
She did, and then I got it. She's not one of the guys, Lauren.
No, she isn't.
I found that out too, like when I threw a cup of ice cold water on my wife in the shower because I thought it would be funny.
It's a funny prank in college with your buddies.
It's not funny to my wife.
Wives don't like that.
I still remember the look on her face. Why?
It was the last thing you ever saw.
Wait. Eddie listens sometimes around this time.
No, 8:45.
Would that bother you if Eddie did that?
Yes.
It'd be so funny, though.
That is not funny.
It's not funny when someone's in a hot shower to dump ice water on them?
No.
Not only did I have a cup of cold water, but I had readied it in the freezer for about 25 minutes. So
that's objectively funny.
So there's ice crystals in there?
It was pretty cold by the look on her face.
That is so bad.
Wow, you wouldn't laugh if Eddie did that?
No, I would not laugh.
I'm seeing reels on Facebook because I'm too old to watch TikTok. I'm seeing reels on Facebook where couples are playing pranks on each other constantly. And I don't get it. It's funny for me to watch them, but I can't fathom doing some of these things to my wife.
Yeah, but most of those, they've planned out, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get a lot of likes on this.
Right. So nobody would stay married doing these things.
No.
They are funny, though.
They may be funny.
Why don't you go ahead and try and tell me if Sarah laughs?
Let us know how funny
Let's
it
see
is.
how funny she thinks it is.
I learned. I've learned that wives don't like that. Okay. 440-546-2255. Eddie. Eddie gets away with a lot. Eddie, if you're listening, try it. He gets away with a lot.
Eddie basically runs that house. He does anything he wants over there.
If he does it to me, then it's fair game that I do it to him.
Right.
So.
Oh, is that how things work?
Yep.
Yes.
Revenge?
Yeah. Because you were being unkind and mean to me. So now you're going to see how it feels.
Oh, I forgot that two wrongs make a right.
Yeah, they don't.
But it's not
three
a wrong.
lefts
You're
do.
intentionally doing it to be mean.
No, to be funny. It's different.
Exactly. It's mean.
But the retaliation is mean.
No, they're both
the
mean.
original, funny.
Both mean.
See how
Do you
that
know
works?
what the word sarcasm means?
What does it mean?
To tear flesh.
Ew.
I don't think that's accurate.
No, it is accurate. And
oh wow,
here we go.
It's getting serious
if only we had a computer in our pocket that could.
I don't see that.
Tear flesh. That's made up.
I'll find it for you.
Oh, you'll find it on your websites.
In my book. It's in my book.
Oh, great.
It must be.
Do you
true
want to
then.
hear my big announcement?
Sure, go ahead.
Should I give it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna
He's going to scream.
Does everybody know you have new glasses?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about it.
Okay.
And we've talked about that they're progressives. You can't embarrass me with that. I understand. I'm getting older.
I'm not going to embarrass you with
The
it.
young optometrist was like, oh, yeah, that's what happens at your age. Like, excuse me.
Did you punch him in the nose?
It was like virtual. It was no wonder it was virtual.
Yes.
She didn't want you to punch her. Yeah.
She can speak to the elderly like that. Do you need a drum roll?
Did they ask you if you needed a special parking place or anything like that?
No, she was like, yeah, Brian, it's fine. At your age, that's when this started. It's just the very beginning of it. It'll continue. Your eyes will continue.
Oh, by
to
the way, this is
deteriorate.
the best they're ever going to be, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, she's like, this will continue through age 65.
And have a nice day.
Well, thank you for this.
Yeah, I do need a drum roll. I need a drum roll.
Ron, do you have a drum roll? It's a long drum roll, so.
That's good because I'm going to need every second of it. I have decided, well, it's not that long. I have decided that I'm going to implement this change hitherto. That I am going to change the name of Chair Powell to Chair Fowl. He is no longer known as Chair Powell. He is known as Chair Fowl.
That's not that big of an announcement. I'm disappointed.
I
was hoping for something bigger. Yeah, that's very underwhelming. I actually like that you used hitherto.
Yes.
That was the most exciting part of that.
I just saw the headline. Something about they're going to slow down rate cuts. Is this why he's foul?
No, that is not why. That is the reason why he's going to be Chair Fowl.
Okay, the once was fine.
Okay. Chair
Yeah, you had
Fowl.
to turn down your own headphones.
I had to turn down my headphones.
because you're yelling.
Yes. I'm Polish, so we yell all the time.
Oh,
People
okay.
say, "Why are you guys yelling?" We're like, "We're not. This is how we
That's
talk."
how we talk.
So
he's slowing down rate cuts.
A big part of the Fed is it's supposed to be an apolitical branch.
Okay.
It's supposed to be. It's got to be. It's the reason why the term of the chairman of the Federal Reserve lasts 6 years. It outlasts the president that appoints them, whether they're
Right.
Democrats or Republicans.
So there's
or
some
independent.
crossover.
Yeah, there's crossover. And so it's like they have a tenure not too dissimilar from a federal judge, although a federal judge's lifetime, these guys, and the president can't directly fire the Federal Reserve chairman because then it would be a political position. So we don't want it to be political. And I go back to 2020 when we're coming out of the pandemic and the budgets at that time were spending drastic amounts of money, and people were saying, well, Chair Powell, should we be fiscally responsible? It's like, well, we don't talk about politics. The one time he should have probably said, it would be better not to spend this much money. He was silent. And then you come to today or yesterday, and he says, well, we have to slow down these rate cuts because we're very concerned about the impact of tariffs.
But how does slowing down impact with the tariffs? What's the correlation there?
So tariffs in and of themselves do create inflation. They raise prices because you're saying, I'm going to take this low-cost production from China and I'm going to make it more expensive. So everything that you get at Walmart and Sam's Club and any other store that you shop at conceivably would be slightly more expensive because we're going to tariff it. So, but left on their face, if all you did was tariffs, yes, you could create inflation. But looking at it as a whole, like if you affected the energy complex, gas, natural gas, oil, all these energy production means, if you were to bring those costs down by 20%, which I believe we could do, you're going to negate the impact.
You'll have relief
of
in one place.
Yes.
Even though there's an uptick somewhere else.
The tariff talk, are we going to put a 50% tariff on the 51st state of Canada? No. What we're going to do is we're going to say, look, we'll talk about these things, but if you're not going to let us have access to your markets, we're not going to let you have access to our markets. This goes all the way back to the end of World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement that is still somewhat in place where we allowed our allies, because we didn't want to rebuild every bridge that we bombed and their economies that we basically destroyed because the Germans had overrun them. We said, we can't pay for that, but we're going to allow you to have unfettered access to our markets, and we're not going to have unfettered access to yours. So we did them a solid by saying, you could sell to us, we're not going to sell to you.
But perhaps that should have been a time limit thing.
It should have been and it was supposed to be a time limit thing, but the most permanent government entity that you could ever have is a temporary one. They never change. And so over time, these European and Canada did this. They essentially built their economies on an export basis, that we're just going to sell to America. And when that starts to get threatened, they start to lose. They lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, what are we going to do? We're going to have to sell to our own people who have no money because we're socialists. Socialist economies can't grow. They can't do it. We're the economy that grows. We're the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry of world economies.
Hitherto, I haven't heard that analogy.
Me neither.
By the way, we do have to take a break, Dave.
Yes,
we will in just 1 second. But I think Chair Powell should resign in ignominy.
Oh my gosh!
Today, he should be fired.
Is someone like paying you for big words today?
No, this is just how I talk. It's
His
in my
team's
book.
listening, and they're going to get money back for all the chores comments if he uses big words.
Yeah, when do they get their allowance anyway? 8:21, time for a quick break. More Dave Szfranski answering your financial questions, 440-546-2255.
If you are 65 or older, you know this. Inflation is hitting everyone hard right now, especially when it comes to healthcare. Over the last 10 years, healthcare costs have skyrocketed by, get this, 230%. If you have Medicare Parts A and B, you know there are still out-of-pocket expenses like deductibles and co-payments, and they really add up. But here's some good news. MediShare 65 Plus is designed to fill in those gaps and help protect you from rising healthcare costs. At only $99 per month up to age 75, you get peace of mind at a price you can afford. And MediShare is trusted, too. It's been around 30 years. It's not some big impersonal thing. It's a community of people helping each other, business owners, pastors, retirees. People love it. MediShare 65 Plus just makes sense. To learn more, give them a call. They're great to talk to. They'll offer to pray with you each time you call, too. Call now, 833-59-SHARE. That's 833-59-SHARE. 833-59-SHARE.
Pursue your passion for shepherding, teaching, and ministry leadership with a Master of Divinity from Moody Theological Seminary. New for fall of 2025. Earn the same world-class degree in a shorter amount of time. We've reduced credit hours to earn a degree while maintaining the quality and course content essential for effective ministry. Need flexibility? Take classes online or on our Chicago or Michigan campuses. Even interchange between all options on a class-by-class basis. Get started at moody.edu/MDiv.
Helping you take the next step in your walk with Jesus. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
823 WCRF. We need financial questions for David Szfranski. We have a couple, but not many. So some of you just presume everyone else is going to ask your question. They're not. This is the time to call or text. 440-546-2255. 440-546-2255. Dave is testing out word of the day as a concept. Every time you hear hitherto, the rest of the show, you have to scream wherever you are.
That's not really a big word, but ignominy is a slightly less used word, I would say.
There it is. Yep. That's also the word we're going to make the word of the day. It's like Pee-wee's Playhouse. You scream when you hear it. Okay. Lauren, go ahead.
We currently live with my husband's mother. She's on.
Oh my gosh, it's already horrible.
You wait. This has happened before. This has happened before.
Okay.
You have to be quiet for the whole question. Because otherwise you look unkind.
Yes.
We currently live with my husband's mother. She's on disability, and therefore my husband pays all the bills. But the house is in her name since she gets a discount. The house is paid off. From a financial standpoint, should we keep the house under her name and have her sign it over to us when she passes, like in her will, or should we have the house signed over to us now?
She gets a discount on what? What is she getting?
Probably on property taxes.
Okay, so she's homesteading it. What you could do, there's a couple things that you could do. And I think where I would start would be with a trust attorney and say, how should this pass to the next generation? You don't actually need a trust to avoid probate court with a house. You could do a transfer on death deed. The moment she assumes room temperature, the house is yours. But it might be done best via a trust. Keep it in her name now. And then at death, you want to... The goal with a trust, there's two goals with a trust. Number one is to avoid probate because everything that goes through probate gets assigned a cost. And so there's a cost to probate that, it could be several $1,000s, even for relatively small estates, where a trust is a lot less. And so anything that you could take out of probate court, conceivably you would want to, or at least try to. And then the second thing is private. Nobody knows what happens in a trust. They're not public documents. If you go to the county courthouse in Los Angeles, California, which I wouldn't even recommend going to California, I would just avoid the state entirely. But if you do, you could look up Marilyn Monroe's estate at her death.
And John Wayne.
And John Wayne, yeah. And anybody else.
Because it's public record.
Yeah. And so.
But a trust is not.
A trust is not. And so if you're a more private person or you just don't want people to know your business, as you know, there's two types of business, your business and none of your business. If you don't want people to know your business.
You're really prepared for today, Dave. A lot of new things
well
today.
rested.
Well rested.
Yeah.
Ignominious.
And I think I've heard either you or an attorney we have on the show recommend not changing the deed from your parents' name to your name.
Well, it's considered a gift. It's considered a gift.
There's other mechanisms that cover more safely your desired outcome.
It would be similar to you have an account, like your mom has an account or your dad has an account, and it's got a couple $100,000 in it, and they say, "Well, I'm going to put your name on this." Technically, it's a gift, and you could get questioned, or you could get confronted by the IRS about that if they were anywhere near as efficient as any other entity in the universe, but they're not, so you're safe. But, they're using a lot of AI now in catching tax frauds and cheats, so we don't really need 87,000 IRS agents. We need AI, and that's all you need.
Everything goes well when robots take over the world, Dave.
Yes.
We've learned that from Hollywood. Thank you.
What is going on in the market? It dropped a lot yesterday. What are your thoughts for 2025?
I hadn't noticed. The Dow dropped by 1,100 points, and it all started at 2 o'clock when
was that a
Chair
result?
Fowl started talking.
Oh, really?
His comments caused the crash.
His comments directly caused the market to fall through the floor and bang its head in the basement. Yes.
And this has happened before. You've talked to us about how there was another Federal Reserve chairman who made a comment.
That was Chairperson Yellen.
And what did she say again?
Somebody said, it was in her first press conference, I'll never forget this. Somebody said, "Do you think biotech stocks are overvalued?" For one thing, it's an awfully pointed question for the chairperson of the Fed. Like the chairperson of the Fed should say, "I don't care what biotech stocks do. It's none of my business."
They shouldn't have even asked the question.
That was the none of ya. That was the none of ya business. Okay? And instead she said, I do think biotech stocks are slightly overvalued. And then you could just watch biotech stocks drop through the floor. Like, oh, we're going to target biotech. Who cares what the Fed chairman thinks about biotech stocks? Honestly, nobody cares. I really do think that the two best Fed chairs that we have had in my lifetime were probably Paul Volcker, because he was really tough. And he gave the market the medicine that it needed at the time that it needed it. And he came in after Arthur Burns, who was arguably, with Chair Fowl, the two worst chair that I know of. I mean, there could have been worse ones. The Fed's been around since 1913, so I haven't seen them all. I know. I mean, just waiting for this.
You were a big fan of Hamilton when you were a kid.
I hesitated giving a date on when the Fed came, but they do have, they're really powerful people, and their words have an impact immediately, as we saw yesterday.
Immediately, but what about long lasting? Someone's asking about 2025.
Yeah. So
is this going to?
A lot of times, the first reaction to the Fed is wrong, and we're seeing that futures are up this morning, but I will see how long it lasts. I think the long-term prospects for the market are are genuinely pretty good because you do have a government coming in January that is focused on cost cutting and spending cuts. Now, the pace at which you do those things is really important because we saw this with Greece in 2013 where we forced austerity on Greece. We said, listen, you're going to spend 50% of your last year's budget. And it just immediately drove them into economic dismay. And there was recessions and people were out of work. And so the pace at which these things occur is important. It can't go too fast, but the directional heading is probably more important right now than actual humongous cost cuts right away. If you're aiming at balancing the budget and bringing down spending, that will be enough. And I do think this DOGE committee, this DOGE effort that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have, it's going to be important. If all they did was focus on the Inflation Reduction Act, which caused more inflation than anything ever in the history of mankind, if they cut that spending, it would probably be enough to start. There's $1 trillion of cuts in the Inflation Reduction Act.
But you're saying don't make dramatic decisions for the next year of investing based on one day. You usually say that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then also, if I know Dave well enough, today'd be a great day to buy.
Buy when the blood is in the streets, Brian.
/ buy low, as I always say.
Buy low.
Sell high.
Sell high.
Market crashes. Buy. I'm basically an economist. 8:31, time for a quick break. More questions for Dave in a few minutes. 440-546-2255.
Heaven. Does it capture your heart? If I could do it all over again. Christian leaders share the most important lessons of their lives. Evangelist Ron Hutchcraft reminds us heaven is about Jesus.
Obviously, if it's all about Jesus, then I want to see Jesus. I suppose gold streets will be nice, and all those gates made of all those precious stones and all of that, but I'd like to make a beeline for Jesus. He will still have the nail prints in his hands and his feet. It's all he brought back from his time on earth. The old song says, I will know my Redeemer when I reach the other side by the print of the nails in his hands.
Pastor and author Steve Brown is hoping to
talk to C.S. Lewis. His son, by the way, is a good friend of mine, and I love to listen to stories that have never been published anywhere about his stepfather. But I would like to sit down with him and say, Dr. Lewis, you didn't really say that, did you? What did you mean when you wrote that? And did you ever feel that the Holy Spirit was talking through you and that you would touch the life of this old cynical preacher? So I'd like to spend time with him.
What is singer and songwriter Michael W. Smith looking forward to about heaven?
Oh, make some music. Join in with the angels. Wonder what that's going to be like. I mean, it's probably, I think colors are completely different up there. I think notes are different. I mean, it's just probably just going to just blow my mind. But to be able to join in with whatever's sung in heaven, it's going to be a wish list for me, and I have a feeling it's going to happen.
Reflections from Michael W. Smith. This has been a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute, based on the book, If I Could Do It All Over Again.
Pastors have to make tons of decisions, including what to do to meet healthcare needs for themselves and their staff. Christian Healthcare Ministries specializes in making healthcare decisions easy and affordable. Not insurance, but a health cost sharing ministry for over 40 years. CHM opens the door for individuals, families, and yes, pastors to be a part of a biblical way to meet medical bills. Get more information and answers to your questions at chministries.org/Moody. That's chministries.org/Moody.
May your family have a holiday season full of delightful surprises, treats, and nonstop laughter. Merry Christmas from your friends at Mornings with Brian and Moody Radio Cleveland.
Chair foul.
Wow, quick turnaround.
Henry, quick turnaround.
Henry's a little economist that this kid
like
is
me.
sharp. Yeah, just like you. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Buy low, sell high.
440-546-2255. Questions for Dave Szfranski.
Is it true that there's a one-time opportunity to sell an investment property without capital gains tax? Our CPA didn't mention it. We have 2 properties to sell, and we want to purchase 1 non-investment property.
You can do what's called a 1031 exchange, and I would ask your CPA about it and see if you qualify for it. It's a way to delay capital gains and maybe avoid them entirely if you pass that property on via a will or trust or something like that, because there's stepped-up basis on.
Of course.
There's always
Stepped-up basis.
We love stepped-up basis.
Some of my financial merch,
Our
I'm going to
business.
have a shirt that says, I heart stepped-up basis.
I'll get one.
Okay.
I
I
don't know what
might
I
give
mean.
you one. I
I
might
don't-
sign it at my book
Oh my
signing.
gosh, I'd love that.
Book signing. You have to publish it first. All right, let's go to, we've got Jeremy on the line. Hey, Jeremy, what's your question for David Szfranski?
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good.
Thanks for doing this. I've got a certain amount of money in a 401k from a previous employer, and part of it is pre-tax, part of it is taxed already. The smaller portion's the taxed already portion. I was just curious, and I need to roll it over into an existing. My current employer's actually it's for the post office, TSP. I was just curious on how to go about what's the best advice to do with those stuff that's already been taxed.
Yeah, they're going to cut you 2 checks. They're going to cut you 1 check for the pre-tax money, and that will go to your IRA. You're going to open up an IRA, an individual retirement account, not a Roth. And that pre-tax money will go to that new custodian. So if it's Fidelity, I'm just picking a name, it'll say the check will be made out to Fidelity for the benefit of Jeremy, whatever your last name is. And then the tax portion, that check will be made out to you. And you could buy a set of golf clubs with it if you wanted, which is what I would recommend. It's Christmas time. Get yourself something nice. Okay?
Well, what if he doesn't golf?
Well, then he disgusts me and he makes me sick.
Okay, well, guess you're looking at disgusting, so.
Yeah, me too.
Not sure that's the road you want to go down.
I mean, I'm not too bad at Top Golf.
Oh, no, I don't think women should golf. They golf way too slow. I'm like, if I go out golfing and I'm like, oh, there's 4 women in front of me, I might as well just go grab lunch, dinner, and breakfast for tomorrow.
Or you could just skip the hole and go around. Sorry, we're trying to have a nice,
3.
We're trying to have a nice time with our friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next question. What does Dave know and think about the CR/omnibus bill? What's CR?
Continuing resolution.
Okay. Is this the spending, the funding?
The spending
of
bill
federal
that
government?
they tried to pass yesterday. It's an interesting phenomenon what's going on right now in American politics, because this CR, which they showed a picture of it was like 1,400 pages.
Oh, goodness.
Ooh.
And the most continuing resolutions are 5 pages. So obviously, politicians of various ilk are trying to sneak things by us. And this phenomenon that's happening right now of Twitter and Elon Musk being part of, this quasi-government position that he has in Doge, most people are getting their news from Twitter. And Twitter came out against this, and he said, well, anybody who votes for this, we're going to primary them. And the next thing you know, this CR went down, and it's not going to get passed. I don't think that they should pass a 1,400-page bill before a new president comes in. That should be the new president's job. Just keep the government working. Let them do a new budget. They have very different ideas from the administration that's leaving. And this seems to me like it's trying to keep the gravy train going that has been going on. And this new administration has different ideas. And I would want them to have a shot, the first bite at this apple. So I don't think it should pass. It's not going to pass. The government might shut down. But when we talk about a government shutdown, we're talking about 2% of the government shuts down. And then if those people don't get a paycheck, they get paid when the new budget gets passed. So I don't want to see people be out of work. I don't want to see the government necessarily shut down, but I think we should be willing to do those things to get what we want.
All right. 440-546-2255.
What is the benefit on your property taxes to homesteading, and what exactly is it?
So homesteading allows you to take to kind of cap your real estate taxes, and Ohio's a homestead state, so if you homestead here, your property taxes are going to get capped to a certain level, and it is important. You know, in 2008, it's going back a few years. Brian was 4 years old.
Correct.
Yeah. Although he's wearing transition lenses now, so.
Oh yeah, don't remind me.
Did they say, oh, by the way, here's a coupon for Depends?
Yeah, it felt like it. Felt like it. I'm still adjusting, Dave.
Are you nauseous? Do you get nauseous when you?
No, but I have habits of lifting my glasses. And one of my kids, when I was explaining it to him, they look at my wife and go, is that why he held his phone so close to his face?
You know what's funny is like when you're in an airport or you're someplace and you see an old person holding their phone out and like hitting the phone with one finger, you're like, oh yeah, old guy.
That's probably you in the mirror. That's my guess.
Did they give you a coupon for applesauce? Just so you don't like hurt your
You'd think
teeth?
so. 440. Did we finish that question?
Basically.
Yeah, the benefit to homesteading and what is it exactly?
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So now we'll go to the phone. We got Amanda on the line. Amanda, what's your question for David?
Okay. So my question is, I have a son that's going to turn 18 in November.
Kick him out.
I owe about $39,000 on my home, and we have about $100,000 in equity. He is currently enrolled at a trade school for HVAC.
And
we
love it.
intend on him, thank you. We intend on him flipping houses for a living, own his own business, you know.
Whoa. Hold on a second. You intend for him to do that. What does he intend to do?
Same thing. I've always thought about it. I will say I used to manage a bank, and I have always told him my most wealthiest of customers were always celebrities or tradesmen.
Uh-huh.
So I told him pick a trade. Let's go from there. His school sent him to a trade school to visit to see, and he fell in love with exactly what I wanted him to do. So he's in school for it. He's very excited. I have medical issues, so it is very important to me that I leave him something where he is on his own. We don't really have family. So when I got sick, our savings account pretty much dwindled out, but we do have the equity of the home. I'm trying to figure out, and I've ran numerous ways through my mind because of my bank history, how to get the house in his name. He is an authorized user on my credit card since he's been 14 years old, and I'm familiar with how to add him onto the credit card so that he has a credit history. When he turns 18, he'll have a credit score, everything like that. However, I will also say he's worked since he's 14, so he will have, the 2 years of credit history and work employment to be able to qualify for loans.
But why do you want to get the house in his name?
So that he could use the equity to purchase his houses.
Okay. Why don't you use the equity to help him purchase his houses and go into business together?
Because when I got sick, my income cut to probably 20%. I'm literally probably 75% less than what I used to be.
Okay.
So I don't believe that, even though I'm pretty much debt free, I don't believe that I would qualify for the refinance to grab the equity.
Because you don't meet the income requirement.
That's correct.
Right.
So I've ran different ways through my mind. I've thought about selling the house. He has ran through. He doesn't want to live in Ohio too many more years. We have traveled. He's seen the world. I'm just trying to figure out how to get the house in his name so he can use the equity, even though there's still a balance.
Yeah, the problem is if you gift that house to him, the loan's going to get called. So if you just give him the house, which you could do, because you could give somebody $18,000 a year without any impact from taxes or anything like that. But you could also use what's called your unified credit now, which is like $13 million in your lifetime you could give away. You could access your unified credit while you're living and give him the house. But once you do that, the bank is going to say, wait a minute, we didn't qualify him for the loan, qualified you for the loan. So he's got to qualify for a loan or pay off that balance. One of those two things is going to have to happen. So it may not be reasonable to put the house in his name right now, but what you could do is I would see if you qualified for a HELOC or something like that, and you might need a co-signer to do that.
I've thought about him being able to co-sign because I built his credit by him being on the credit
Yeah,
score.
but he's going to need income to co-sign.
Yeah.
So,
and if I can ask, why do you want him to be able to purchase a home so quickly?
Well, he currently works 2 jobs, and I will say he's worked 2 jobs since he was 14. He's a supervisor at one. But my fear is if something happened to us, that he wouldn't have the ability. One is, if he's not on the house and I was to pass away, how would he take over that house to get that equity?
do you own life insurance?
I do. I bought it in 2010. It was only a 20-year term.
Okay.
And I've looked at converting it into a whole life. Right now, the whole life would be too expensive for us to be able to afford.
Look at converting it to a variable life. It's about 15 to 20% cheaper cash outlay.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
And is your concern that if you were to pass away, that he would not inherit the home? Is that what your concern is?
Not only that, but I feel like I would be afraid that he would want to go work for an employer and be an hourly employee when I already know from the history of me being at the bank, the most successful of people are the tradesmen. They are the celebrities. I don't want him to have to show up 40 hours a week.
Well,
to a job
hold
that
on
he's not
1
happy at.
second. Hold on. Look, he's 18 years old. He's not ready to run a business yet. He just isn't. No, there isn't an 18-year-old alive that I've met, at least yet. So it's a good idea to go work for an HVAC company, a good company, maybe even a smaller company where somebody's going to teach him not only how to do this stuff efficiently and work with people, but also run a business. So he's still got it. He's still cutting his eye teeth on getting. He's 18 years old.
Well, I should say that in Ohio, he does have to work for a contractor 4 or 5 years before he can even own his own business.
Yeah.
So I should mention that we're looking at more like when he's 23 years old. But I wanted to start getting everything ready.
Do you have a will and trust set up yet that would make him the beneficiary of everything?
I didn't think that I could until the house was paid off.
Oh no, you could set that up yesterday.
Everybody should have a will in Ohio. If you don't, everybody should have a will. If you die without a will, you die what's called intestate, and the court's going to decide what happens. So you need a will. You may or may not need a trust. You definitely need durable powers of attorney for finances and for health care. These are things that you could do right now, but I think you're putting the cart before the horse a little bit here.
With a good heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I'm glad you called because I think what he needs to do, the most important thing for me is that he builds a knowledge base over the next couple of years because we could train Brian to install a furnace. We could. It would take a long time.
Yeah,
it would take a long time.
Yeah.
But we could. It would probably be better to train Daria. She would pick it up a lot faster.
She would hardly need training, I'm sure. Yeah.
She probably already does it on the side. We don't even know.
Sure.
But so he needs these things. And then not only that, but the biggest thing that business owners deal with is clients. He needs to develop his client contact skills and his money management skills. Get him on a budget. Make sure he's living on 70% of what he brings home. So you're putting money aside so that you can start a business at some point in time. And maybe somewhere along the way, you guys get a chance to buy a flip. You could do that with $5,000-$10,000 with the right know-how. And then you're kind of working this house a little bit. So you guys are working towards something greater. But I think you're getting a little ahead of yourself.
Yeah, and I will say he does have a Roth and he does have CDs and savings and investments. Like financially, he is fine. I just didn't realize. So if we put that in a trust, even though there's a balance on it, that would automatically transfer to him.
No. At your death, it transfers. This kid sounds so great. He should be wearing a cape and tights.
He does sound like a great kid.
Who installed your furnace? Superman. Thank you. Superman did it.
But yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like the loving thing for you to do at this moment, beyond continue forward with a good heart for your son, is to get your estate legally cared for, so that he won't have any concerns on that front.
Okay, that makes sense because we've even debated on him cashing out his CDs and his savings and everything and just paying off the house. Like, I've gone back and forth about that too, but then I thought, well, what kind of taxes is he going to pay if I do that?
Well, you have some taxes for sure, but on a CD, which is quite possibly one of the worst investments outside of an annuity, friends don't let friends buy annuities, by and large, or CDs. You could get, in a money market right now, you could get 4.6% and have immediate access to your money. In a CD, you got to lock it up. So
and see, Dave, for me too, like at his age, there's part of me that also wants him to, I don't know, like go out and have a lot of fun too.
I was trying to figure out how to hide smoking from my parents at 18. So, you know, I'm like, oh.
Like he should go out to eat a lot, buy some toys. He sounds like he's really secure financially.
We
He's got a
basically
great
hid
career.
from the cops and let down our parents. That's what our main goals were at 18.
Well, you know what we did? One is, I will say, he came from a single-family home, and he learned from what his dad did not to be that way.
Yeah.
But what we did with the CDs is we made it to where the CDs were only a year long, and he had a CD maturing every month.
Okay,
So
I want to meet this kid. We need him on the radio.
And to be honest, you've set him up better than most parents will ever set up their children. I mean, you've already done so much for him to prepare him. I would say he could, buy a fun car after his first job.
Easy.
Go out to eat a lot. I mean, really. I mean, most kids, they don't have any credit. They're going to get into hundreds of thousands
Larry
in debt.
Burkett used to talk about this. You save some, you spend some, you give some. And I do think that there is this principle where if all we do with our kids is say, you got to save, you got to save, you got to save that, you got to save that. There's got to be a little bit of reward within reason. I would let them buy golf clubs and start them on all good business people golf.
I will say I let him buy a car and a motorcycle. But he had to,
a motorcycle. Wow.
But he had to save. I make him put a certain percent into a savings account, and then he had to purchase it with his savings account. I don't let him, or with his spending money.
Yeah, don't worry about the house, sister. I mean, he's good. Like, you're doing a great job.
I was, one of my friends in high school said, hey, we're all getting our ears pierced tonight. And I'm like, if I show up with my ear pierced, my dad will punch my face. I'm not allowed to buy a motorcycle. I'm not allowed to pierce my ear. And if I get a tattoo, my mom will rip my skin off.
Oh, my gosh.
With that gentle thought, Amanda, thanks for the call. Really interesting. Appreciated the back and forth. We're up against a break. More questions for David Szfranski, 440-546-2255.
Prayer isn't a substitute for action. It is an action for which there is no substitute. At a time when several states have again voted to expand abortion rights and the abortion bill continues to rise, prayer is a powerful response. That's why CareNet has formed the Abundant Life Prayer Network. When you join the Abundant Life Prayer Network, you'll be connected to a compassionate community of Christians who are praying for fathers and mothers at risk for choosing abortion, praying for our nation's pregnancy centers and churches as they minister to these fathers and mothers, and praying that unborn babies and their parents will not only have life, but will have abundant life through Christ. As a part of CareNet's Abundant Life Prayer Network, you'll impact lives, grow spiritually, and join with other Christians who share your respect for life and your love for those facing pregnancy decisions. Learn more about the Abundant Life Prayer Network at care-net.org/prayer. care-net.org/prayer. Join today.
Yeah, I've got a question about.
Here's my question.
On Open Line, Moody Radio tackles lots of questions. But listen to these questions from Romans 10. How can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? At Moody Radio, we share the simple gospel message every day, but it takes money to send that message online and on air. Would you be part of our sending team?
Thank you for your generous giving to Moody Radio Cleveland.
Jesus is the reason for the season. Merry Christmas to you and yours from your friends at Mornings with Brian and Moody Radio Cleveland.
Here we are, a few more minutes with our friend David Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group, 440-546-2255. I feel like our friend Michael texted, you'd hate it when I do this, Lauren. I'm sorry in advance. I think he's just trying to provoke Dave.
Why are annuities bad?
Michael, why do you hate me?
See, exactly. So let's go to a different question.
You're asking me, you asked me to ask the question, and then you're getting mad at me saying go to another
why
question.
would you ask that question? It just provokes Dave, Lauren.
Someone else wants to know, though. Why are annuities bad?
Okay, they're not all bad. They're just oversold dramatically. and they're expensive.
They aren't the best vehicle for your financial future usually.
Well, I mean, they're a niche product. So a niche product for me would be 15 to 20% of the population, but insurance companies figured out they make a lot of money off of them. So all of a sudden, if you said, hey, doc, I'm having a hard time seeing. Do I need transition lenses? And the doc said, no, you need an annuity. That will solve. Is that going to help me see better? No, but I will make a lot of money off of it. And so they have surrender penalties and high fees. And I'm telling you, I've seen these things over time. They rarely ever work out like you think they are.
Because they're usually more of a benefit to the person that's selling it, right?
Yes.
Than the person who's
And
but,
yes.
but there are people who they're a good fit for.
There are.
Who's that?
That's the niche. So if somebody said, if you lose a dime of my money, I'm going to find out where you live and I'm going to kick TJ and Max.
Your dogs.
My dogs. And I love TJ and Max. I don't want them kicked. So you're going to get an annuity because there's guarantees in there. If you're super conservative or, okay, so here's another niche portion. Let's say you have a relatively large portfolio and you say, well, I'm going to take 20%, 25% of my portfolio and I'm going to put it in a guarantee. So if the market's really bad and I'm taking money out, I could take it from the guarantee. So there is a position for larger portfolios to say, I'm just going to put some in an annuity just to have that fallback position. So there are places where this makes sense, but it's rarely for all of your money.
What percentage of your retirement
5
portfolio should be in precious metals?
5.
Really?
Look at that! I was right. 5.
If you watch a lot of cable television, though, these guys try to convince you should put it all in gold.
Yes, this is so along the same line of annuities. It's a fear component that we all suffer from, a fear of loss. What if I lose all my money? What if I lose everything? What if the market goes to zero? What if Chair Fowl says something else today in the market? Well, the market's never gone to zero. In 2008, the market didn't go to zero. In the Great Depression, the market didn't go to zero. In the 70s, the market didn't go to zero. So we all suffer from these kind of like far out edge emotions, fear and greed. Okay, I'm afraid I'm going to lose everything. I'm afraid I'm not going to have anything. That's the greed component. You got to avoid those channels of investment style. They're not real. It doesn't happen. So you got to stay diversified. The market is up 80% of the time. The market is up. That's really where you should be. Now, how you should be in there, what you should own, that's up for debate because there are people that are more conservative. There are people that are more aggressive. But we can address those things. We could address conservative investors in the market where you're going to make more money than an annuity and you're going to make more than precious metals. My favorite precious metal is brass. It fits into a 9mm. I love it.
Okay. I think I asked you this last week, but now I'm second guessing myself. What are your thoughts on True Hold or other companies like it?
True Hold? I don't even know what that is.
Where you sell your home but stay in it?
Oh.
Is that a reverse mortgage kind of? What is it?
No, a reverse mortgage is
you sell your home and stay in it.
Yeah, maybe you pay rent on it.
I don't know if I like that idea.
So I see things like this when people need to generate some income and they need to generate cash. Maybe they've spent all their money. Maybe they didn't save and they want to stay. A reverse mortgage can be a really good option for this. There are people in the reverse mortgage industry that I trust. One of them is a good friend of the show. And I would look at that before I just out and out sold my home. Now, when my neighbors did a reverse mortgage to stay in their house, and they lived there 15 years after they did the reverse mortgage, and they had cash to spend. So it can be a good idea. At the same time,
I had a neighbor who had one and had to leave because she got to the end of the reverse mortgage.
It's possible.
You have to think through all that and plan.
The best thing to do, if you have time, is to save money. That's the best thing to do. And I sat down with somebody recently who was like, well, I'm never going to be able to retire because I'm not going to have $7 million. I'm like, well, why do you think you need $7 million? Well, that's just what I've been led to believe. Well, no.
Oh, well.
You don't. It's a lie we tell people to get them to buy annuities, I think. I don't know. You don't need $7 million to retire for most people. And the book I'm writing, The Sin of Retirement, financial merch coming.
Before the book?
Maybe.
The book may never come out, but you can buy a T-shirt.
That is not true, Brian. The book is
when
coming
is
out.
it coming out?
Soon, very soon.
Soon and very soon.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned.
All right, we got to get out of here. David Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group. Best way to reach him, come to us. And from us to you, Dave, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right, that's it for us. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Follow-up Friday with Pat.